Here is a country of great contrast.
Great civilization of antiquity.
A foreign country a step away.
All right, we're back. It's the Casa de Cavazos. Justin in Chicago, Ada in Harlingen, Texas. Nathan, who knows where he is? We haven't heard from him today. He's probably asleep. But we are providing that Tejano connection to reality. Maybe Nathan will join us a little bit later to talk about a couple of other topics. First off, how's it going? What's new with you? Have you gotten your real ID yet?
Yes, I've had it for a while. I went to the DMV. They took a horrible picture of me. They didn't even show it to me. I have a horrible picture now for I don't know how many years on my license.
Maybe 10 years later, you'll be like, that was an amazing picture.
I don't think so. I think just my face looked horrible. My smile was just bad.
Yeah, I do not have my real ID yet. The deadline is May 7th, so if our listeners needed a reminder, that's when that is. In Chicago, at least, there's just blocks of appointments and long lines at the Secretary of State office to go get that done because people waited till the last minute to do it. I think I'm going to wait until after it dies down, but I'm just going to carry my passport with me for those scenarios where I need it.
Yeah, so you can use your passport instead of a driver's license that's a real ID, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly for flights, but I was reading somewhere that's also about sometimes entering government buildings.
Interesting. Everyone should have a passport during this administration anyway, because of the fact that you'll be checked to see whether or not you're a citizen. And also, they'll want you to show a passport to vote or to register to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good idea to think about getting your passport anyway.
Yeah, but they're already floating the option of deporting citizens.
That's true. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about what happened to me this past week. A little update. I wasn't here at the last pod because I was in Miami, went to an emergency medicine conference. You guys didn't say much about me being gone. What the heck?
What? We're supposed to just sit there for like half an hour of the pod. Like, I wonder what Ada's doing today.
Yeah. There's very little mention other than saying I was a misogynist, apparently. But yeah, I went to an emergency medicine conference. I started going back to the conferences 2 years ago. I missed last year, though, because I wanted to go to a law school class instead during that month. And just didn't seem like it was going to work out great for me. So I went back this year. I had fun. Like, it's fun to talk to people that you haven't seen for years, your former residents, your former attendings, catching up with people, getting really good cutting edge emergency medicine knowledge to share and to use. But I will say that I have a really good life as far as my one kid, my dogs, and when it was time to go back, I'm like, I'm ready to go back. Like, yeah, I'm in Miami, but I'm ready to go back home and be with my kid, be with my dogs. Yeah, I don't really like to be away from the kid and the dogs.
Are you implying that there are some people there who don't like their lives? They're like, I wish this conference lasted forever.
I don't really want to say anything negative about anyone, but I think for some people, like, their lives are so hectic that they would like to be away for a good period of time. But I am lucky not to have such a hectic life and one kid and 2 small dogs that I miss.
Well, was it pretty exhausting? It sounded like you were up and out for many hours a day.
I was not exhausted. Sir, I'm in great shape due to the workouts that I do. And I, in general, do well with my sleep, and my health is pretty good. So, no, I was good.
What time would you get back to the hotel?
I mean, I think it varied. Maybe 9 p.m., 10 p.m., and then I'd still stay up late.
Mm-hmm.
I was feeling good.
At what time would you get out there?
Maybe 8 a.m. or so. I did have class on one of the days. I had a law school class, so I started the day with staying in the room, did my class, and then went to conference about 10:30.
The conference life, I've experienced it for the first time in the past year. It can be pretty rigorous. The schedule is pretty nonstop. Like when I was at the game developers conference, I was reconnecting with people, meeting people that were really cool that I ended up just kind of seeing every day after meeting them the first day of the conference and just kind of making new connections. What ends up happening is that you get there, sessions start at 8 or 9 a.m., and the conference ends out for the day maybe around like 5 or 6 p.m. But then everything afterward is networking and continuing
Yeah.
to hang out with people. So even on days where I was just like, man, this is a whole like 4.5 day conference. I should, go back, get some rest, hang out, and then someone or another invites you to like a company gathering. It's like, hey, like we're gonna go be hanging out at this wine bar over here. Do you want to come over? I'll buy you a drink.
Yeah.
And then not getting home until 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
I was in an Airbnb in the suburbs of San Francisco when I did that conference, and there was this Taiwanese woman who like lived there and was like the host for the Airbnb. Super nice. Like, we'll sometimes make food for you, but I would get back super late. I wouldn't see her from when I checked in, and I think it was maybe 3 or 4 days in. She messages me on Airbnb saying, like, I haven't seen you around. Is everything okay? I was like, yes, thank you. I'm fine. I just have come back really late.
Yeah, I think the longest day I had involved being at conference all day. And then there would be networking breaks during the conference as well. And then we had a dinner scheduled for 6 p.m. Some of my friends wanted to go to a specific restaurant that could cook some fish that they had actually caught that day during like an excursion. And then after that, there was a residency happy hour. So I went to that. And I think I stayed out till like 9:30 or so. I think that was the longest day for me.
Yeah. I was also kind of surprised myself about how I wasn't exhausted just talking to people all the time. Like, I feel like I rested well and I slept heavily in the nights between the conference days. But outside of that, I was ready to go. I was ready to talk to people,
Yeah.
drink my coffee, learn things, check out other people's projects, and do a whole bunch of stuff. I think I really am an extrovert. I get my energy from talking to people. And then when I come back and doing my whole work from home thing where I'm doing like sound design and all that stuff just in my room, in my computer,
Yeah.
not talking to anyone, I just feel like super, super drained after having all of that socializing for a whole week.
Well, I don't think I'm an extrovert, but I also find it invigorating to be around people, getting that energy from other people,
That good energy.
learning new things. Yeah, good energy, learning new things, like planning the future, planning other things that can be done as far as like future plans, like just like your general plans for next year, things like that. Like the whole thing, like it's just invigorating, like being around other people, listening to their lives, their future plans, new ideas, and then also the actual knowledge that you're getting from the conference.
Yeah. Did you end up having any time to do anything that was like Miami specific? Like go to a Heat game?
No. I mean, we just walked around and we went to some restaurants. We went to this little restaurant complex that was really cool off the water. It had some good music, good vibes. I've been to Miami before, so I didn't really need to have the whole Miami experience this time.
Could have gone to see the Heat.
I mean, I'm not sure if that's considered Miami experience to go to a basketball game. I mean, then there's no Jimmy Butler. There's no James Butler. I was going to say James Butler.
That is his name.
His name is Jimmy Butler. Do you recall what happened?
No.
So he did really well in a playoff game. And his coach, who was it? Brett Brown? What's his name?
For which team? For the Sixers?
I don't remember.
If it was Sixers, it's probably
okay.
Brown. If it was the Wolves, it was Thibodeau.
It was Brown specifically. So he did really well in a playoff game. And so the coach decided to say in the post-game conference, that wasn't Jimmy Butler. That was a James Butler. And then Jimmy was like, no, actually, my name is not James. It is Jimmy officially.
Really?
Yes.
So we've just been calling him James Butler erroneously?
It's not erroneous. It's been a joke all along when I've been saying it. Because of that specific situation, he was like trying to make it seem like, oh, that was an adult James that was playing. Like, don't call him Jimmy. And then Jimmy's like, but actually, Jimmy's my official name, like my legal name.
You know, I didn't know that. I was just calling him James Butler.
Yeah, and like I said, I was just calling him James based on that funny thing that happened with Brown.
It shows what I know. Well, the final day of the NBA regular season is upon us. That's today, April 13th. And Jimmy Butler will be playing with the Golden State Warriors against the Clippers tonight on a pretty pivotal game in the West that decides which of those teams is guaranteed a playoff and not a play-in spot. So Clippers Warriors is going to be tonight. Very, very side tangent. I always see Golden State Warriors abbreviated as GSW, but watching like medical
gunshot wound.
Yeah, medical TV shows. I think about gunshot wounds. So like people actually say GSW in the ER.
Yes, and then we write that down.
Do they use a bunch of different acronyms?
Yeah, we use other acronyms too.
Yeah, Becca was telling me that someone who asks her for medical advice sometimes will just like throw an acronym at her, and she's like, I don't know what that means. And it's like stuff that people don't usually use acronyms for. Like, what's your RHR?
Oh, resting heart rate?
Yeah, like, do you use that?
I know what it is, but I will say that I think it's interesting that, like, I've had some patients, especially on telemedicine, that I think they made up their own abbreviations. I'm like, what does that mean? And I'm like, yeah, I've never seen that. I don't think that's a medical abbreviation.
Becca says that it's probably from TikTok. That there are all these people who are like sharing all of this information. They start using their own acronyms, and they think that doctors are supposed to know them too. Mm-hmm. So that's where it's coming from.
I had some people too that were very confusing because they said they had AD, and I'm like, what does that mean? Like, they said, oh, alcohol disorder. But then some other people tried to use it as autism disorder. I'm like, okay.
That's like the
That's
problem
very confusing.
of just using all of these blanket acronyms. There's that overlap.
Yeah. Yeah, so I will ask, like, I'm not afraid to show that I don't know certain things.
So someone's like, yeah, I have ED. You're like, oh, you've come to the right place. And you're like, no, I have an empathy disorder.
Or what if it was Ehlers-Danlos syndrome?
It could be so many things. Anyway, basketball.
Yes. So I think pivotal is an understatement with that Golden State game. I mean, it's massive because Golden State could potentially go into the play-in if they lose, right?
Yeah. So they're guaranteed a 6th spot by winning. The team that has the most variability in where they can end up is Minnesota. They could land anywhere from 4 to 8.
What? That's horrible.
Yeah. Well, they're coming on at this end of the season, and I feel like a lot of these West teams are peaking at the right time. I mean, the Clippers are on a 7-game winning streak. They're matching the Bucks for that same amount of wins in a row, and the Bucks don't even have like a completely healthy team right now. Well,
the game is in Golden State, so that helps Golden State a bit. But if the Clippers are really playing that well and they're really gelling, then maybe the Clips are going to win tonight.
Maybe it'll be like that Spurs Warriors series. I know like that's the playoffs and this is the last game of the regular season, but maybe the Clippers will jump to an early lead, think like, yeah, we've got them, and then Kawhi will get hurt again.
Oh no. Kawhi, the constantly injured player.
It's gonna happen. Like, as positive as Nathan can be about the Clippers' chances, I feel like there were like 2 playoff runs where Kawhi played the entire playoffs, right? And those were those 2 championship ones. 2014 with the Spurs and the 2019 Toronto Raptors championship.
So you're saying that whenever he stays fully healthy, he wins the championship?
It's possible. I don't know. I feel like Nathan would have to fact check me on that. I think he, as the resident Clippers fan on the pod, would know. Yeah, but a lot can change. I mean, even the Kings and the Mavs seeding in that 9-10 spot can change, but they're just so far behind the rest of the pack that it doesn't really matter. They won't be exiting the play-in. They won't be getting to the 7 or 8.
So the East is locked in, but the West is crazy. So we'll see what happens after today.
Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait for the playoffs. It's going to be a really interesting time because I don't know if you caught this, but the final regular season broadcast for NBA on TNT had already happened. They made this whole event on their campus in Atlanta, Georgia, where they covered the game there with friends and family of folks who work on that show at Turner. I mean, TNT will still produce it, But the NBA on TNT as we know it for the regular season is done. That was it.
So it's going to be on ESPN now?
Yeah. It's going to be on ESPN. So I don't know if we've covered this on the pod. I don't think we have. But the actual way that the rights work out is that TNT is still going to produce the show in Atlanta. But the licensing and broadcast rights are going to go to ABC and ESPN.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. This first year of the deal, I think it's a 7-year deal. There aren't really that many games that they're going to do. There's going to be across a couple of specific events where they're going to have an Inside the NBA coverage. So it's not going to replace their usual crew who does all of the NBA on ABC or NBA on ESPN stuff. It's like Christmas Day. There's some other thing, and then they're going to get more active in the new year, and after that, they actually get to extend through the playoffs, and this will probably be the first time we'll actually see the Inside the NBA crew on the finals because they always end at the Eastern Conference Finals.
They're going to be calling, well, they're not calling, but they're going to be commentating during the finals? That's going to be cool.
Yeah, I mean, that would be awesome. It was also unknown if Ernie Johnson was going to stay on, but it sounds like he is because there was talk about Stephen A. kind of taking his slot, but part of the deal was because they're staying in Atlanta, Ernie Johnson is going to stay on because that's where his family, that's where his life is. So when there were talks about moving the entire crew to somewhere like L.A., where, you know, you have like that ESPN or even like their East Coast location, Ernie Johnson was like, well, if Inside the NBA is not in Atlanta, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
But they decided to keep it in Atlanta. He's sticking around. They'll see what happens. I don't know what everyone else's contract looks like. But it was an emotional farewell that even though they're still producing it there, it's not going to be the same on the same network. Like, who knows what's going to be like? Who knows if ESPN will allow them to actually be themselves and be experts and be goofy in the way that team is?
They have to be themselves for it to work.
Yeah, but have you seen the way that they do their commentating mid-game? They get to talk for like 5 seconds each, and then they break the commercial super fast.
Well, I think in order for it to work, they're going to have to let them be them. I mean, that's what makes them them. It also would have been weird for Ernie not to be there and to replace him with Stephen A. Like, that just would not have been the same.
Yeah.
Like, that dynamic is just so good. Those 4 people together, Charles, Kenny, Ernie, and Shaq, they just work really well. Like, they'll joke about Tom Brady's looks, and it's, like, amazing and funny.
Can't believe you didn't know about that, about Charles Barkley just saying that he was so beautiful he couldn't talk to him. Don't make eye contact with Tom Brady because then you forget what you're going to say.
If the listeners haven't seen that, that's just like comedy gold. Because basically this like heterosexual man is like, yeah, he's so beautiful. I couldn't even look at him. I couldn't say anything. I had to look down. And then I think Shaq comes in and says, oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we've experienced that with Tom. It's like, so what do you do when you see him? You just ignore him? You avoid him?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good team. I'll try to cherish this run for the rest of the season, for the rest of the playoffs. Because who knows? Like, we might take it for granted now, even if we think that Inside the NBA is going to remain on ESPN. I'm just worried that the character of the show will be different. Executives who think they know more than they do will try to force their hand to be something that the show is not.
Yeah, if you mess with it, then it's not going to work. You have to let them have full creative control and let them do what they did before. That was so successful. Like, I remember at some point in the past, probably when I wasn't in law school, I remember staying up after games just to watch them. Mm-hmm. It was almost like a late night show.
Yeah. With all of their bits and their pranks and their EJ's Neato-Stat of the Night. Sponsored by no one. Yeah. I know that Chuck especially is not afraid to criticize the overlords about who they schedule on what games and what he thinks about the actual teams. And I don't know if the executives at ESPN are as cool with that.
I mean, I think that if you were to allow someone like Charles to have real input into the games that are selected, I think that would actually make a positive difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On this kind of like farewell broadcast that they were doing for the end of the regular season, Kenny was talking about an early meeting that he had on production when the current group with Shaq, Charles, Kenny, and Ernie Johnson were all on the team, and they were saying like, okay, come to the production meeting so that we can talk about, what's going to happen during the games and what we're going to talk about. And Kenny was basically like, is something going to happen during these games that myself, Charles, and Shaq have not seen in our careers playing? And they were like, no. Actually, you know what? You don't have to come to the production meetings. And Kenny was also saying that when Charles first came on, Charles like asked him like, hey, like, what are you going to say during the break? Like, what are you going to say when we get off the game? And Kenny was like, you'll find out.
That's funny.
Like they don't have like a bunch of like canned stuff. Like sure, they have their stat guys and people that'll help them out with some information. Ernie will have his meticulous notes, but these former players, like they watch the game, they're students of the game, they love the game, so they're just spending all of this time and energy absorbing it and just using their knowledge.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I think that they really have a flow now. Like they have a little bit of structure to it, but they just know how to chat and make it funny and make it interesting. And I feel like I do get a lot out of them. Like that's also part of why I liked watching the late night show, because they would give insight into who was going to win the championship or who were the players that were really good that I thought in general were pretty accurate.
Yeah. I know some people who don't like Inside the NBA, and I was very surprised to find that those people existed.
Who are these people?
I don't know. There's like some like white dude from Boston that I know from Stanford who was saying like, actually like it's not for me. And I was like, what? I love the chaos. Like I don't know. I think he wants people to like have their hands like clasped in front of them, being like, yes, like so, like statistically, LeBron James's performance is one of the all-time greatest of the generation.
I don't know, sir. Is that a little racist of you to be like a white dude from Stanford? Or do you not have anyone else that you could give as an example?
No, like he was like the only person that I've met who said he doesn't like Inside the NBA.
I mean, I think that with anything, you're gonna find someone who doesn't like it. Like how I don't really like women's basketball. Sorry, I'm already laughing.
All I can do is shake my head.
Hey, if my daughter was playing, then I would like her games. But she has no interest in basketball. And also, genetically, I don't think we should be playing basketball. I'm 4'11". I think she's going to be taller than me, but I don't think she's going to be taller than like 5'5".
You played basketball in high school, right?
Yes, that was a poor decision by me. People who are 4'11" really shouldn't be playing basketball. They should be playing other sports where maybe you can get away with less height.
What was your career high in points?
I have no idea, but I did make a half-court shot during regulation.
So you scored.
That was like my highlight.
So you scored at least 3 points in a game. That much we know.
That is true. Also, when I was in JV and I was playing against other people that weren't that tall, I also would have multiple blocks in a game. I distinctly remember there was this one game where this girl was killing us, and the coach was like, all right, shut her down the second half. Because she was holding the ball from like more chest level when she started the motion. So I was really good about like right at that moment just blocking her. I think she was shut down completely in the second half because of me.
You locked in.
But also the refs are BS. There was another game where I had a very clean block and they called a foul. Like, come on, bro. I did not touch anything but the ball.
Did you do like the Tim Duncan stare, like the bewildered, like really, me?
I mean, I think at that level you're just like, I'm just a kid, and I guess what can I do?
You didn't necessarily have hops, but you were using your brain to block all these shots.
I had hops compared to other people who were close to me in height.
So like a 3-inch vertical versus like a 2-inch vertical.
I have more than a 3-inch vertical now, sir.
Now?
Yes, I do. You
should get Rick to measure you.
I actually jumped yesterday just to see how high I could jump.
What was the result?
I'm able to touch above the door frame.
Okay. You need to get those things that they have at the NFL Combine, where it's like the little thing that you slap.
Yeah.
Tells
I
you what
should
your
get that.
vertical is.
They probably have to make one for shorter people, though. Like, I don't know.
It's
if that's-
adjustable.
Is it?
I think so.
They're like, well, this doesn't adjust to people who are 4'11". I will say that at times I have measured at 5 feet tall. So I don't know. Maybe I could be 5 feet tall on a good day. Like
Well,
when my body is all stretched out.
Well, in all of the American sports, they measure the athletes with shoes.
Oh, okay.
So you can say you're probably like 5'1" or 5'2".
I don't know about 5'1" or 5'2".
Depends on how
When I
much
was at the-
cushion you got in your shoes.
When I was at the conference, like, I really realized how short I am. There were so many tall people, tall doctors around me. I'm like, yeah, I don't feel this short in South Texas, but now I realize how short I am.
Yeah, it really depends on where you are. Like I feel like the Midwest specifically, like there are a lot of like tall Midwesterners from like the Scandinavian and like German heritages.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to New York, and like I think the average height is a lot lower. Same thing with like Europe. Like there's some parts of Europe that do have like those tall genes, but other parts, like I feel like I was walking around Italy, I was just like, what? I thought Europeans in general were supposed to be tall. They're not.
On the topic of height, one of my friends did give me the advice that most senators are like 6 feet tall. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, like I'm not going to be 6 feet tall, and the people that are running for the House in my district are not 6 feet tall either.
What, Nancy Pelosi 6 feet tall?
I don't know. I mean, I think it would be helpful to be like this smooth 6 foot tall person that speaks very articulately, but
Hey, AOC is only like 5'4".
I don't know. I mean, clearly I need to like get coached, speak better, like craft my message, but I'm never going to be 6 feet tall. Just FYI. Even if I did that surgery where they basically break your legs.
Yeah, your body would
Make
look
you
all
taller.
weird because the rest of your torso would still be the same size.
Yes, it would look weird.
You would look like you're going through puberty where your body hasn't like grown into itself yet. Then you'd have the scars too, forever.
That's true. Speaking of politics, what do you think about the latest tariff story?
Oh, we're allowed to talk about tariffs now because Nathan's not on the pod because Nathan hates talking about the tariffs.
I mean, the tariffs are going to continue to be a story, like potentially for 4 years.
Yeah, it's BS.
I mean, he pulled back a lot of it, right? There was a 90-day pause. And then now there is an exception for smartphones and computers and I think other things, other electronics, right?
Yeah. I don't know what the deal with that is. I don't know what the deal with also trying to trash that CHIPS Act that Biden signed. That had bipartisan support, and we're already looking at potentially getting rid of that just because Biden was involved. Like that's the whole thing that you're trying to do is bring manufacturing back to the States to bring that power of producing chips here. And you're saying like, oh, like Biden did it, so it was the terrible, horrible CHIPS Act, so we have to get rid of it.
That's exactly the problem with the politics that we have now. Red team versus blue team. It should not be red team versus blue team. Like, oh, everything we do is good, everything they do is bad. It should not be like that. We're on Team America. And maybe our team has some principles that are a little different, some policies that are a little different, but there should be times when you can see the other team's policies as good.
Who was it that shared that Daily Show video? That was basically if the stock market's doing bad, then you'll see that the Fox News media sphere will try to focus on trans athletes.
That was Nathan.
Yeah.
So this is like really tough to unpack, right? Because there's so many issues that go along with the tariff story. But one issue is that there's this alternative media, Fox, Rogan, Tucker Carlson, and they create their own narrative. So if something's going bad, like specifically the tariffs, then they'll focus on other things that are not even really major issues. And so they're creating this like very much red team versus blue team, like, oh, we're against transgender craziness on the red team. And the blue team is for transgender craziness. And let's focus on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've even had, and maybe I mentioned this before on a recent pod, I've had these Facebook conversations with people that I don't know in real life. And I won't even be talking about transgender issues. I'll just be talking about how Joe Rogan is not someone you should trust about healthcare.
Yeah.
And somehow they'll bring up that I'm for mutilating children with transgender surgeries. I never said that. I would never be for like doing all these transgender surgeries
Like,
on small children.
Non-consensual, hyper-invasive. But that's just like a complete lack of understanding about, the importance and the huge decision making that goes into gender affirming care. They just don't know about it. And then you have people who say like, well, we endured you shoving 50 genders down our throat. And I was like, no, we didn't. Actually, your right-wing media sphere did.
Yeah.
Your right-wing media sphere is one that's talking about that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And digging into the most obscure sports to talk about this whole issue.
Yeah.
Like sports where a gender difference doesn't even matter. Like
Fencing.
pool,
Yeah.
billiards.
Well, that's what goes back to the thing that Nathan shared, right? So tariffs are bad and bad things were happening to the stock market. So then Fox News was focusing on transgender athletes, like in fencing and in pool and even in other countries. And allegedly, also some of the videos were old, like 6 months or more old. I mean, we'd have to fact check that because, of course, whenever there is a situation where you see a video from The Daily Show, you should fact check it because, of course, they're going to exaggerate a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think, but these days you don't even have to exaggerate.
For the sake of
this
comedy.
is real stuff that happens.
Yeah. It's a bad time. And, I do think that there are people out there, if they were to meet and even just try to understand the struggles that transgender people go through, they would start to understand and start to unravel this. But I don't know, you're creating this invisible, dangerous minority that people don't know and don't understand, and it allows them to create this narrative that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then that creates a lot of danger for people with gender identities that they're not familiar with. I know a lot of people who are queer, gender fluid, non-binary, trans, and it's a scary time for them. It's extremely stressful in their day-to-day just because they're just living their lives. They're not enforcing some kind of ideology on people saying well, everyone needs to be trans too. No, that's not how they live their lives. They're just trying to fucking survive every single day. And they have to hear this bullshit all the time about how, they're trying to destroy and mutilate our children. They're trying to hurt our girls in girls' sports. That's not what they care about.
Yeah.
They're just trying to survive and not kill themselves.
Yes. That's why there's a billboard here left over from a political campaign with our current state senator on it that he's protecting our kids. Okay, so I know what you mean. You mean you're protecting our kids from all this transgender ideology, but that's not even really a real issue or a major issue.
Not
and you're not protecting our
kids
kids
from the measles.
Yes, you're not protecting our kids from all these anti-DEI policies that are going to harm the kids in our district. You're not protecting them from guns.
You're not protecting them from SpaceX and this just unfettered access that Elon Musk and his team have to take away beach access from the community, raise their housing prices, and all the other environmental impacts that will affect public health in this region.
Yeah, there's so many things you could say. You're not really protecting them from the real thing.
Yeah, you're screwing the economy in a way that will hurt the most vulnerable and poorest constituents that you have. And you're telling them they have to suffer. You're telling them money's no big deal. We can lose some money. And it's these rich talking heads that are the ones telling them that it's okay for you to not have money.
Yeah. So as someone who's trying to run for Congress, how would you propose that I deal with the transgender issue? What should I say? Because clearly I'm not for the supposed mutilation of young children.
But it's not happening. How do you convince someone that it's not happening?
Yeah.
I will say time and time again, for anyone who is on the fence about this thing or really believes that and who's actually listening to this, though who knows, people want their beliefs to be confirmed. So if we said something that they disagree with, they might not even be listening to this podcast. Gender affirming surgery is a very difficult and well-considered decision to be made. It takes many sessions to even know if you're a candidate for surgery, and you have to know that it's a rigorous and rough recovery process. It's not an overnight thing.
Right.
Children are not being mutilated. Now, how do you
Right.
convince someone that that doesn't exist?
Right. I mean, I guess we could talk to other doctors and get real stories about what's really happening and relate that to the people. I also think, though, that supposedly we're for freedom, right? So I think that families should be able to talk to their children and make family decisions about what they want to do about the issue. So if a particular family feels that their 15-year-old child needs to transition, then shouldn't they be allowed to do that? If, as a family, they feel like this is the right decision for their child, for their 15-year-old.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, some folks are very anti-transition in a way that can harm their child, especially if they have some pretty extreme gender dysphoria or body dysmorphia, and the parents really trying to drill into their heads that there is no option for you.
Well, but once you're 18, you can do whatever you want.
Some kids don't even make it that far.
Like, you mean they kill themselves?
Yeah. So like where is that support?
Well, I think
for
there's
those
never going to be a
kids?
perfect answer for most problems in life, right? So we have to come up with an answer that works for most people. And if people are going to freak out that you're allowing, I don't know, 15-year-olds to maybe start transitioning with hormones without consent, then we got to come up with something that works for everyone. And it might not be perfect for everyone. But that's why I think it's should be left to the family. And yeah, some of the family members are going to do something that's going to harm the child because they're not going to let them do anything.
I mean, same thing with vaccines. I mean, you're telling people that the decision for healthcare lies on the family. Vaccines
Yeah.
are a family decision.
Yeah.
But you're also taking away the family decision to actually assist a child in something that confirms their gender identity for them.
Yeah.
So like where is this equivalency that doesn't exist? You're creating these double standards where for certain things you can have it as a family decision and for other things you can't.
Well, but for vaccines, though, I think that's different because that doesn't just impact the family. That also impacts the community. You need to have herd immunity in order to protect people as well. So that's the thing about vaccines.
But according to people, having a trans kid affects the community too.
Well, I don't
You're
think
putting
that's true.
the girls in sports in danger. Fucking bullshit.
Well, that sport thing I think is also nuanced because I think you should let the community decide. If the community says, yes, we're going to allow transgender people to play, then that's fine.
What if
And
it's
in
a
other
misinformed
communities-
community? What if it's like that Mennonite community that decides, oh, we're going to not do vaccines. And vitamin A and cod liver oil are going to take us through this epidemic.
I think, though, it's not a winning issue, and it's something where we need to pick our battles because there are situations where it's a very physical sport. And if you have a kid who went into male puberty and then transitioned after that and has advantages, there is a real concern that that person has massive advantages and could potentially physically harm the other players.
Yeah, but when there's hormones involved, they lose a lot of some of those other advantages. Like maybe there is like greater muscle mass, but then you don't have like maybe the same endurance. You don't have the same stamina, and it depends sport to sport. But also like the number of trans athletes is so small, and
It
they're
is
not,
extremely small.
and
So
no one
this
ever
is
does
not-
it for a competitive advantage. No one ever does it for a competitive advantage.
Right. Yes. They're not doing it just for competitive advantages. They're doing it because they are a transgender person and they want to compete in the sport where they identify with that particular gender.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, these are the conversations that we should be having to figure out what works for most of the community as far as respecting people, not discriminating. And there's also the real concern, like you said, that in certain situations, people will commit suicide. So I don't know. It's a tough topic, but
Well, I think it has to be scientific. I think like people have to actually examine the issue to confirm or deny what the risks are. I mean, any contact sport has a risk associated with it. You know, like there's that one like that volleyball spike that people will point to. That's a risk that is inherent in volleyball. And upon looking at, the speed that this trans player spiked the ball with, she wasn't really hitting it harder than a lot of other people.
Wait,
Like,
there's data on the speed?
on cisgender women. Yeah.
What? I didn't know that was available
I mean, you can figure stuff out from knowing
from the video.
the video, the speed, the size of the regulation volleyball court and all that. It's not that much faster. It might be above average for a cis female athlete, but it's not like far and away from the rest of the field of cisgender women. Like, it's actually pretty in line. It might be in the top tiers. I mean, the same thing with the Leah Thomas thing. Like, Leah Thomas only gold medaled in one event.
Also, when I looked up volleyball injuries, so it's not an issue that's only from transgender women spiking the ball really hard. It's also happened with cis women.
Yeah, it's an inherent risk of the sport. I mean, same thing with baseball or softball. Like, there's risk of injury on any of those sports when you're out there.
I mean, it's a really complex topic, I think. And that's why there's always a risk when you oversimplify it like you do on Fox. I mean, maybe it could be oversimplified on the other side as well. It's super complex, and there are concerns on both sides about why certain policies are impactful. And I think we need to have people in office who can have these hard discussions and bring people together and come up with solutions that'll help transgender people, and also, I guess, make people feel like they're not getting it force-fed to them, whatever that means.
Well, they got to stop watching Fox News. That's where the force feeding is happening.
Yeah, Fox and other right-wing media. It's not just Fox.
Yeah, they're made to think it's a really big issue, and that some of these injuries that happen are abnormal because of who is participating. But no, they're actually oftentimes pretty normal. People get spikes to the face all the time in volleyball and get concussions.
Yeah.
That's just what happens. That's par for course with the sport.
At the end of the day, though, a lot of these issues come back to your home situation, your home discussions. If you're so concerned that your kid could start to believe that they're a cat or whatever, allegedly.
Yeah, but that's like a completely different thing. But like the right has conflated it as the same thing.
But, okay, let's say you're a Fox News watcher and you're concerned about these things. Why are you so concerned? Because all you have to do is teach your kid whatever your values are. And, I mean, you may disagree with what they're going to say to that kid in the home, right? I mean, people are going to do things differently. But if you're so concerned, why don't you just talk to your kids and say, I don't believe that you could be a cat or whatever.
Yeah.
So why are you so concerned about what's happening in the school? Just talk to your kid. Put your values on the kid. That's what it's supposed to be like. Why are people so worried about the school's doing this, the school's doing that? It's like, you talk to your kid, teach your kid. That's really where the values should be coming in. And that way you would be inoculated against these alleged things that are happening at school.
I feel like it's the new like satanic panic. Like instead of saying like, oh, the Harry Potter is demonic or whatever the fuck that people want to say. Now it's, oh, like my kid is meowing sometimes. Do they think they're a cat? Is it this ideology that's being forced on them? Like, no, sometimes kids just play. Kids make those sounds. There's this episode of South Park from a couple of years ago where one of the characters, Butters, just like plays pretend all the time and makes all these like little characters because he's like an only child. So he'll pretend to be a detective sometimes, he'll pretend to be like a supervillain, and then like his parents are just like, oh my god, like does he have like multiple personality disorder?
Yeah.
It's like, no, he's just playing.
I mean, I do think that it's helpful to be aware of the issues. Like for me, that has made me discuss with my daughter, like whether or not she thinks she's transgender. And I don't think that would have happened 20 years ago. I think I wouldn't have even thought to talk about that. And maybe if she was transgender, she would be hiding it for most of her young life until she felt comfortable. And now I'm at a point where she could tell me now and it would be fine. So I think that's why it's important to be aware, and that way you can discuss with your child and not be blindsided and also support them.
Some people don't actually talk to their children. It's amazing. Some people really have this authority complex. Like, I'm the parent. They need to do what I say. So they're only ever interacting with their children as an authority figure.
Yeah.
As a boss, as a warden.
Well, I mean, there's a balance, right? Because some people say you shouldn't really be like their best friend.
Why?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I believe that.
Who says that?
I don't know. I've read that well, they're not really supposed to be your friend because that way you're too nice to them, essentially. Like, you're not going to have that authority, that ability to discipline if you're too nice, if you're too friendly.
Yeah. I see so many problems with that. Like, how do you transition from that when they become an adult person with their own thoughts, feelings, and ideas, their own agency, and then you don't have that authority anymore? How do you handle that? Like, do you still, like, when you're 60 years old and they're in their 20s or maybe even 30s, and you're just saying, like, well, like, I'm your parent, like, you should respect me, goddammit.
Yeah.
Even if you're wrong.
I don't really listen to the advice personally. I'm pretty friendly with my kid. Maybe too nice. Maybe she should do more chores. But I feel that overall, she feels supported. She feels comfortable telling me things about her sexuality and other issues that come up.
And kids start thinking about this earlier than we think.
Yeah. And if you make them comfortable with telling you things, then that means that maybe if something bad happens in the future, they'll be comfortable with telling you.
Yeah.
Maybe if they make a horrible mistake, they'll tell you rather than being afraid.
I don't know. It's a weird world to live in. I can imagine while you were working on, starting a campaign, possibly becoming a politician, that someone will find this podcast and try to use your words and say that you are for sexualizing children or whatever. That's just the world that we live in. People want to take things out of context or find ways to demonize you or grab onto the one thing.
Yeah.
Even though, like, you are pretty moderate when it comes to these issues.
But it's not sexualizing children to be aware that children do start having crushes at a fairly young age. And so my daughter talks about her crushes and her friends' crushes, and it's been going on since, I would say, at least 9 years old. They start to get a sense that they like certain people. And they may not even necessarily know what that means. It's just like a just like a feeling like a magnet towards a certain person. They may not even know about what that would entail if they got into a relationship. Because I've asked her, well, what would happen during a relationship? She's like, oh, we would just talk a lot.
Yes, talk a lot. That's what all the adults do. So when you talk to someone that you love very much for a certain number of hours, that's how a baby is made.
I don't think that she's that lacking in knowledge, but I just wanted to know what she thought would happen. As far as, like, what happens if you were to actually say we're in a relationship together?
Yeah, there's this uncharted territory.
I said, well, you're too young for a relationship, I believe. You're 11 years old at this point. But I just wanted to know, what do you think it entails at this point?
You exchange gifts, you eat food together.
Yes.
Maybe you hold hands, but even then, it might be kind of icky. There's hope yet for the next generation. I think I'm under the impression that parents can mess up their children in all kinds of special ways because of their own issues, their own insecurities. But I don't know. Trust, love, care. I don't know. Not treating your child like a pawn to be crushed under your authority at all times.
Yes. So before we sign off, do you think that I'm messing up my child at this point?
I mean, in some way, probably. I mean, I feel like she's already messed up from other issues in the past. Having a deceased parent will do that to you.
Will it?
You think she'd be unaffected by it?
I don't know. She
like,
says
it's whatever.
Now.
It's whatever. I don't have a dad.
That's what she says now. But I imagine at some point she may feel something.
Yeah, it's latent. It's under there. I mean,
yeah.
I think there are probably some adjustments you can make to your parenting for the long run. But I think you're putting out fires where the fires need to be put out.
And I talk to her a lot, and
Yeah.
we're able to talk about the big issues, and she feels
Yeah.
comfortable. And there was an article about gentle parenting in the Atlantic, and I feel like I'm kind of like that. Like,
Yeah.
you can tell me something horrible you did, because usually I'm just gonna be happy that you told me,
Hmm.
and let's see how we fix it or how we deal
Yeah.
with it.
Instead of gaslighting them into thinking that they broke a
Broke a
lamp.
lamp.
Yeah, I do think, with the being the only child and wanting them to have all the things that you didn't have growing up can sometimes create, for lack of a better word, a spoiled child that
Yes.
might still need to learn how to interact with people and have some work on developing empathy.
Yes.
But I think you're aware of that.
Yes,
You're working
she's
on
a
it.
spoiled child, but she has been asking me the last few weeks about what she should do with her life. She needs to make money, apparently. That's what she told me.
Why is she thinking about that right now?
I don't know. Maybe because she's considered a spoiled child. I don't know.
Maybe she's aware. She wants to go to that concert in Chicago without you. She wants to pay her own way. All right. Well, we hope that you are, taking care of your loved ones, your children, your community, also yourself. You can take care of us a little bit by liking, subscribing, rating 5 stars on that podcast on all the platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to send questions and thoughts to casadecavasospod@gmail.com. We haven't had a mailbag question in a little bit that we've considered on the podcast, so we'd love to continue talking to you, giving us fresh topics, and we'll see you later.
Until next time.